So please stamp your keyboard, make some noise, and welcome to Grant Talks Funny Bits, the incredible Richard Barker.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on.
And there is. Oh, thank you for being here. It's nice to have somebody that's I say a half Brit. You're a Brit by all accounts, but yeah. So how long have you been in the States? What's your story that got you to where you are now? Not so much the stage stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
So it's around about 2002. I'm in England, and I'm a police lieutenant at the time, which is an inspector, in the UK. And I get sent over to on secondment, which is like being on loan to the NYPD. And I had just taken extensive NLP training with Bandler over in London. And basically, I had an opportunity to go to New York City to the John Jay College of Criminal Justice Studies and start to work with NLP over in the US. I had no intention of actually staying. I just thought it would be, it was a 6-month sort of term that ended up being like 16, 17 years in the end.
Wow.
So I came over as a police officer, practicing NLP, doing sort of hypnosis from a law point of view, interviewing suspects and witnesses and victims of crime. And on the side, I used to do, hypnosis shows, not really anything serious, but the contract got extended. I ended up leaving the police service in the UK, and I ended up staying in the US, getting a green card and then getting citizenship. So it's nice. Kind of by accident, really, how I ended up here in Florida at the moment.
Yeah, a very nice part of the world. So how long have you been in the States up until now?
So I moved in 2003. So
nice.
Where are we? 2020. Yeah. So it's been a while.
Yeah. So I think one of our first interactions was a few years ago. I was performing in Munster. Is Munster where you were born?
Yeah, in Germany. Yep.
Yeah. That was Yes, I always talk about like interesting shows, and the Munster show was fascinating. Some of the guys in question, it was their mission apparently that the comedy act, they always try and make last 15 minutes before they make them walk off stage, and and the agent is telling me this just as my intro music starting, so that was a challenge. So. I was watching some of your YouTube videos earlier as well. I see you've obviously performed for the American troops.
Yeah.
Have you performed for British troops? And would you say there's a difference between the two?
I haven't actually performed for UK troops. So I've done US Navy and Army, but not had the opportunity to work with the Brits because when I was actually a soldier myself, it's when I saw my first hypnosis show. I was 18, and nice. Somebody came over from the UK to Gibraltar and entertained the trip. I'd love to know who it was because they were awesome, and it basically pretty much changed my path in life to want to do hypnosis. But no, I never worked with the Brits. But I've done the Americans. It's a lot of fun, as you know. The troops are all up for it, so it's a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think your Englishness, your Britishness helps you being in America? I know the couple of times I've been there, there is this fascination with us as Brits. Do you think that's helped your career path as such?
Yes and no, because there are some people that really don't like Christopher Columbus. they don't really like the British Empire and things like that. So in the most part, what I've learned is Americans are very accommodating and they like different accents, and they're pretty receptive, and you just have that little uniqueness, so you stand out a little bit just because your accent's not the same. So I think it's just like I do play on the fact that I'm English, just because it's something slightly different. And I think as a stage entertainer, we all should find what it is about ourselves, in fact, or our journey so far that sets us apart. Otherwise, we all just look like each other, same shirts, same style, same clothes, and it just kind of all looks the same. So I do play in it a little bit, and I do think it helps people remember me specifically.
Yeah. Speaking of shirts, it would be remiss of me not to say that I'm currently wearing a mindspiral.com t-shirt.
That's awesome.
Yes, from fellow Brit hypnotist Kaz Wiley. She's set that up. It's absolutely amazing.
I saw someone wearing it the other day. I can't remember who it was.
Kaz has put them out there, and they're absolutely some great designs. So Each guest I've had on, I'd like to think has got something that I think is fairly unique to them. In my opinion, one of the things that makes you stand out above everybody else is you are the marketing guy. You know, I think it's fair to say that you've got a couple of really successful courses on marketing, and that's kind of one of the USPs that you push to sell to other hypnotists and other people like that. And I think in this industry, that's one of the things that we are missing a little bit. If you know, I mean, there's a lot of people that try and do the performance side of it without the marketing and the business side of it as well. So does that come from a marketing background, or is that just stuff you picked up along the way?
You know, I kind of picked it up along the way, and but I'm very interested in it because marketing's the lifeblood of any business. And you can be the best stage hypnotist on the planet, or the best juggler or fire eater or whatever, but unless you're actually out there to the masses, then nobody's ever heard of you. So of course the bookings are a direct correlation to the marketing that you put in. So I think there's only really three factors. It's how you interact with your bookers, past, you know, present and future. It's how your marketing is aligned and put together. And it's how your show can stand on its own with testimonials and reviews and raving fans. And if you have all three, then that's a winning combination. But a lot of people kind of forgo the marketing side of life. And we end up getting in this sort of trap of just talking about microphones and, you know, face masks and, you know, the type of, do we tie our chairs together or don't we? And more technique. And I know hypnotherapists do this, that they focus on technique and tools rather than the promotion of what they actually have. And it's kind of something a lot of people are weak at. So I think that we should concentrate actually more on marketing because it's the engine behind the vehicle, and the vehicle being the hypnosis show. So yeah, it's one of my strong suits because it's given me the advantage to put myself in arenas, you know, that's got national television coverage, local coverage. And once that momentum starts moving, which, you know, there's no overnight success, of course, once it starts moving, it's easy to keep it moving in the right direction.
Yeah. I think a friend of mine says it takes at least 15 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah. And it's the momentum, you know. So some people, they'll do like, you know, they'll do Facebook ads or a little bit of marketing. And after a week, they'll say, well, it didn't work. Well, yeah, because you have to be prepared to like make at least a couple of $1,000s worth of mistakes before you understand Facebook pixels and retargeting. And, you know, you've got to spend the money to make the money. And a lot of people shy away from it. And of course, there's a lot of bad advice out there. Yeah. And that's where people stand still. They can't promote because the advice from the person teaching the marketing is not actually relevant or current. So there's issues there too, I think.
Yeah, especially, I mean, Facebook ads used to be, you could just spend money and you would get the reach. Now the algorithms change so much that you have to put out a quality ad to kind of get that reach. And it's just, I think just as you get it sussed, Facebook likes to tweak it just to kind of get more money from you, you know. So yeah, I've lost, not lost.
I think one of the tips, you know, one of the tips I would give anybody is that if everybody's doing Facebook ads, go ahead and do something different. Try Instagram ads, or do a bit of YouTube pre-roll ads, or, you know, always step ahead of the pack. And if the pack is all doing marketing on Gigmaster or the Bash, or was it the Biz Now or the Bash or whatever it's called, and some other online platforms, change it and do direct mail. Because if you start changing it, you start separating yourself. And then when people start catching up with you and they all start doing direct mail, by that time, you've already spun into pre-roll Facebook ads or YouTube or podcasts or whatever's next. And I think that's the key. Don't get stuck in one particular arena, and keep moving your marketing along is the way to go.
I think physical medium now, you know, is so valuable because people are so used to getting an email. I knew a guy who had a great, I mean, cheesy as it is, it was great. And his flyer, he used to send them screwed up in a little package. And when you open it up and it says, the only thing I would screw up is this flyer. And again, the return you get on that is brilliant.
If I can give you, let me give you viewers something, because there is a course on YouTube right now. It used to cost like $5,000 and it's currently free. I don't know why it's free. Maybe somebody ripped it and put it on YouTube. But the gentleman's name is Dan E. Kennedy. It's a little bit old, but it's Dan E. Kennedy, and the training is called Mailbox Millions. And it teaches, and it's free, and it teaches you direct mail. And like what you just said, sending the crumpled up piece of paper in the mail, or, you know, what I've done is I've sent something in the mail and they open it and it springs out. It's called the red letter box, and it springs out into a cube. and you're spending a couple of dollars on it, but they will never forget it.
Yeah.
So it's the power of the mailbox has no spam filter. And then they say that 6,000 emails is the equivalent to one greeting card.
Yeah.
On an emotional level.
And in such a digital world we live in, that getting something through the post means so much more now. My cruise agent always gets a handmade card with a little note every year, because it's the value is worth the effort. So yeah, right. We're going to show your sizzle reel now, and the people that are watching. For anyone that doesn't know who you are, they're going to see this sizzle reel and know that you really do kind of, you definitely kind of walk the talk.
Richard Barker is here. Richard is one of the finest hypnotists working in the world. 1, 2, and 3.
This is the power of hypnotism. If I say something to be true, it's true.
Work with a lot of people, a lot of famous people. Ohio State is the team that follows, the one that you love the most. Favorite team, my friend?
Ohio State. What a reminder of your feeling sleeping. Richard Barker, how are you?
This is really interesting to watch.
Misunderstanding as to what it is and what it isn't.
It's really incredible. Richard Barker, congratulations,
man. What a great, successful career.
I don't know what's going to happen in the next 9 minutes on television, but it could be fascinating.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. This has been fascinating.
This has been an incredible experience.
And I want you to understand, imagine that was 5 minutes. What would happen in an hour?
He's been featured on stage and television around the world, including The Today Show. Let's give a big welcome to Richard Barker.
Here to help us get through that is Richard Barker.
This guy's amazing. Check him out.
Even if I told you, I know you won't believe.
Oh, there we go. And that was Richard's absolutely amazing sizzle reel. So, is it Vern Troyer? How was he to hypnotize? Because he's quite an on guy. Oh, sorry, I'd muted your mic, so you had a bit of echo then. How was Vern Troyer to hypnotize?
Pretty straightforward, actually. He has passed away, so rest in peace.
Yeah,
he passed away a couple of years ago, but such a nice. The first thing that struck me when I met Vern is literally how small he was. He literally is way smaller than I ever imagined him to be in real life. And he basically dropped into a trance so easily. And he's and I don't know if you know the story about this, but over here, college football is huge, and that's like American football. And he's a diehard Michigan Wolverines fan. And their arch rivals, if you will, are Ohio State. And in his living room at the time, he's collected all these different like these football helmets, American football helmets. So it was a big deal to have him say that he's an Ohio State fan with a Michigan shirt on. And then he had to send out a tweet to all his fans apologizing that he said he was an Ohio fan, which of course he's not. I got a kick out of that. Such a nice guy.
Yeah, I always think it's weirdly, it's probably one of the most powerful demonstrations of hypnosis when you're kind of working with someone's sports team, because like UK soccer, if you're a fan of that team, then you are not going to fake being a fan of a different team. I had it once up in Scotland with a Celtic Rangers thing, and it gets such a great reaction from that. So What's
that one's a big one. To have that rivalry just kind of knocked down like that using hypnosis, it converted a lot of people into believers. Sure.
I mean, how did it affect your business as such, your career, doing the TV that you've done, the James Corden, the Tonight Show? I know there was a couple of years where it was just like, I'm constantly saying like, bum Richard Barker on this TV program, bum Richard Barker on another. How did that? I saw you got a blue tick, which is always a great thing for kind of that social proof. How were things after that initial kind of?
It just went nuts because I was doing small local. I started off on podcasts, then I went to local press, then it went to national press, then it went to like local television lunchtime shows on the news, and then obviously evening news. And I just put myself out there as much as I could. And the more I put myself out there, the more offers I was getting picked up by other people. And then the first break was the Today Show, on NBC. It's a big deal. And I go over there, and it's funny because they were going to give me a 5 minute slot And then when I started, they realized how good this was. And in fact, the viewership was so high, they basically have all these different signals, you know, behind the camera, like keep rolling, keep going. And I wasn't supposed to like go through an induction on TV at all or anything like that. So I just thought I was going there to be interviewed. Next minute, of course, it turned into a whole different segment. And then it went on for about 22 minutes. And the poor people that came in from for the cooking show got canceled. I'm like, oh, you know, but then they invited me back 2 years later. But what it does is it just opens up the door to so many different opportunities and high profile clients that it just snowballs. And it's so worth doing. If you can persist at the media and get that break, it's going to change your career completely. Definitely.
One of the things, obviously, it'd be remiss to not mention it for those that are watching it on the replay. We're in the middle of the COVID situation. You're one of the few that have been out there and actually got a couple of shows under your belt, under the new normal as such. How has that been? How has that affected the shows, people's suggestibility? You know, is it the same? What challenges are we facing?
Yeah, I've really sort of so I had a couple of shows that I was able to rescue. I did one show where they refused to wear face masks, gloves, didn't want me wearing a mask, and everything else. So you know, you got to go with what the client wants, but you also have to be aware of what the guidelines are and your safety as well as theirs. So the first one I did, I literally did it with no mask, no gloves, no nothing, and just did a regular show. Nobody really said anything. And then on the second show, everybody's having their temperature checked. You know, everyone's wearing masks. And what I found was first of all, the show is very different because you don't see anybody's expressions because they're all wearing face masks. So you just don't see those hypnotic looks. You know, it's only their eyes. So that was kind of tough. And then everyone sounds muffled. Me, them. My mask was getting sucked into my mouth and I could barely speak. So it's kind of tricky. And then I changed the show where nobody's leaving their seats, which usually in my show, everybody's out of their seats. It's just the way I do my show. So to have everybody sitting down, I had to change all the routines to sitting down kind of style routines. So it's tricky.
I mean, it's a big, on bigger shows, having those visuals of people up and dancing and shouting and screaming. It's a big part of it. So yeah, it's how are the audiences? You know, is it, you know, can you still get the same reactions?
Yeah, because I don't think they know any different. And the good news is, you know, doing the schools and colleges, they only know what they know in that moment. You know, it's almost like a dog, you know, it doesn't know what it did 5 minutes before. So they almost don't have any reference to a hypnosis show from last year or the year before. They only know what you're delivering them. So what I've learned in entertainment in general is as long as you don't identify the problems to them, they don't know that they exist. You know, and as long as you don't identify the technical errors to someone, they don't know that you have tech errors either. So I kind of delivered the show as if this is just the normal way we do things. And so consequently, the audience loved it. Because
that's how I do this show. Every week I always have a tech issue, and every week it's always something different. Last week we started off doing simulcasting, so we were going to two places at the same time. That brought issues. This week we've had some more tech issues, but it's the nature of what we do that, you know, when you go on stage and the lights come on, you perform, if you know what I mean. So
you know what, though, it's good to experiment, and because a lot of people don't experiment, so they don't further it. So even in your show here, you're experimenting. You know, I mean, I'm using these new lights and realizing I'm one big like blob of a pink guy, so I probably need to like tone these lights down a bit. But they're new. The little kind of like, see these little spotlights, the Chauvet spotlights. They're awesome, and they're magnetic. But of course, they're so bright. I look like I've got a big shine on the top of my head, but I'm still going to play around with it for when I'm doing, you know, virtual sessions with clients and things like that. So it's, I agree with you. It's continuous learning, definitely.
Well, and that's I mean, especially in the Zoom culture we've got at the moment, as a stage performer, you know, it's about bringing that to it. I always have hashtag be the show, and it's about, it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're on stage or if you're seeing a therapy client, it's about bring the razzle dazzle, bring the lights, bring the music, be the show. And so you're absolutely spot on. And it is, for me, this was we have a Welsh hypnotist here in the UK, Jason, and when this all happened and I went into a bit of a dark place, Jason's like, you know, get a new stage, go online, do some stuff, and that's what this has become, if you know what I mean. And it's nice to meet,
I've noticed that there's a lot of stage hypnotists that have actually banded together, which is really impressive. You know, myself and Michael Mesmer being one, and there's a bunch of people that are like just stuck together and helped each other out, because I mean, it ain't easy. I mean, there's people sitting out there that are used to doing 300 shows a year, and all of a sudden they've been reduced to 0. and it's emotionally tough because you're used to getting that audience feedback, aren't you? And you don't get nothing on Zoom.
And it's like I say, it's not just the financials; it's the adrenaline and the rush that you get from performing. You know, and you're doing that all the time, and all of a sudden you take that out. That is a very difficult drug to give up. You know, and I struggle with it. Absolutely.
Entertainment is a high. It's a rush. And this is why it took me years to understand why the comics turned to cocaine and drugs and everything else. It's because they want to fulfill and continue that rush. You know, obviously that's not a good thing, but it is adrenaline and it is a rush and it is a drug. And most of us love being on stage. And now we're in, you know, COVID. It's hard on people. I know it is. You know.
Yeah. Speaking of highs and lows, I watched with almost tears in my eyes to see your lovely car. Did it catch on fire?
Yeah, so what it was, I woke up early in the morning and decided I'd go for a drive. And so I go for a drive around St. Petersburg. It's a beautiful city, early in the morning, so there's no one around. And I actually was pulling it back into my garage, which is currently under a townhome. So it's actually it's kind of, the house is on top of the garage. It's a weird sort of layout. And I could smell a smell, and then I could hear the sound of what sounded like a bonfire. And I was like, that's weird. What's that? And I turn around, there's flames pouring out the engine. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, we had to call the, you know, the fire service and everything. It was rough.
Yeah,
and I watched it just go up in flames.
Yeah. And it was such a beautiful looking car as well.
Yeah.
One of the things we do when guests come on is we always ask them a tip, you know, not something that's generally out there, but for either hypnotherapists that are thinking of doing performance to help their business or stage hypnotists at whatever level that they're at, one nugget that you think that is something that will help them.
I would say what's helped me out is persistency and consistency is key. So if you're gonna be a stage hypnotist, then you have to be persistent and consistent. There's no point in taking a weekend training class and then 6 months later going and doing a show and hoping that it goes, you know, everything goes all right. And it's the same as a hypnotherapist. If the last weight loss session you did was like 4 months ago, and all of a sudden you have a client tomorrow, it's very difficult to get back in and snap back in. So you almost have to rehearse and practice on a daily basis, which is like what comedians do, therapists do, any athlete would do, you know, a tennis player would. And we tend to forget that we are, you know, what we do is an art form. It really is an art form. And to hone the craft, you actually have to sort of constantly do it. So on one level, I'd say consistency and persistency. Don't just like do it once and then rely on another class coming up. Just do a little bit every day. And then with marketing, a lot of people are thinking to themselves right now, I'm not going to do any marketing because it's COVID. Actually, you should probably do a bit more. Because now is the time where your dollar goes further with your marketing, and actually now is the time to get all that marketing in place and together, because you're going to get rewarded 6 months down the line. So just keep doing it every day. You're not going to get quick results, quick hits. It's gonna come. You're going to get it later on down the line when you're not expecting it.
And I think that's right with a lot of stuff when it comes to hypnosis. Is you're constantly investing in yourself for how you're going to be in 3 years' time. You know, in 3 years' time, you'll look back and go, "Oh, this is how I am. This is how I am." Speaking of invested in yourself, I always ask guests for 2 book recommendations. But as it's you, Richard, and you're a fellow Brit, I will allow you to give 4 book recommendations because I know you have 4 incredible books. Which, if you're watching this on the replay or on YouTube, there will be a link in the comment section to it. But tell us about your books, Richard.
Yeah, so I've got 4. I've got Secrets of the Stage Revealed, The Guide to Hypnosis and Stage Hypnotism. It's a pretty basic stage hypnosis book, but it has like an A to Z or an A to Z of routines. It has the induction in the back, the element induction. I think it's pretty solid. I have Selling Hypnotically, The Art of Suggestion, which is more to do with sales and persuasion and influence. The Hypnotic Goals Planner, which is a goal setting book, and How to Get from Passion to Success, which is my personal favorite, which is just how to find your self-discovery and your groove. Because, you know, people go on a stage hypnosis class, for instance, but it might not be for you. You might actually find out this is not what you should be doing. And there's no harm, no foul by saying this isn't for me, but just find what your purpose actually is. One of my favorite books is 10X by Grant Cardone. I just like the way he thinks.
Yeah.
And I also like Robert Kiyosaki, the cash flow quadrant, because it just makes complete sense.
There was a great podcast with Jordan Belfort and Grant Cardone, and they're both at polar opposites of how you should attack marketing and success, but together it was brilliant to have two people with different belief systems but really work together. And I